And we are back with the fifth and the final segment of the GSMC Basketball Podcast presented by the GSMC Sports Network. And in this segment, we are going to continue on with the list of players that have the most to prove going into this next season. And I'm probably going to get through maybe I'd say about 5, maybe 6 players on this list, and then we'll move on from there. And let's see, I don't know. You know what? I'm going to start picking the more popular players, okay, that have a little bit more to prove. And, so instead of just, generic names like Patrick Williams, you're going to see big names now. So this list might be a little bit more intriguing to you guys as opposed to just listing off some role players. So the first player that we have here, or, not really the first player that we have here, but, the next player on this list that I think has something to prove is the Cavs' Evan Mobley. Now, Evan Mobley, there were talks that once Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland, over in the offseason, there was a little beef going around, at least on the internet, and there was some Cavs drama, debating on whether or not they were going to trade Darius Garland or whether or not they were going to trade Donovan Mitchell, but the Cavs insisted on running it back with the entire lineup. But when those talks were in motion, a lot of Cavs fans and a lot of people were speculating that Evan Mobley was going to be the centerpiece of the offense. And Evan Mobley, he is a very competent power forward and a rather underrated defender in my opinion. And he sort of has to put the whole world on notice in this season. So I sort of feel like this is where he has a lot to prove. And given his performance in the final game of the postseason when he dropped over 30, definitely needs to prove that he can be a solid second or even a third option for the team. And let's see, going on with with Bleacher Report's article, Mobley still suits up alongside Jared Allen, so there's a need for Mobley to harness an outside shot. And that's also going to be another thing that he has to prove because he is a pretty good mid-range shooter, but in terms of three-point percentage, he isn't entirely there. And if he's able to develop a three-point shot at the power forward position, it can really increase his value. Since Mitchell arrived and pushed the Cavs into the Eastern Conference's top-tier teams, there is a rush for Mobley to sort of blossom into the team and sort of become that third or second option for them. And it's hard to see the Cavs even entertaining championship dreams without this happening from Evan Mobley. And like I said before, Mobley is a fantastic defender, and he's also able to clean the glass and finish around the basket as well. And again, this two-way talent is going to be very, very important for the Cavs and the make or break for their success. And on top of that, barring injuries aren't an issue. Now, the next player on this list is for the Dallas Mavericks. Obviously, it's Klay Thompson. He's faced a lot of scrutiny over the offseason, going 0 for 10 in the final game of the Golden State Warriors season. And really, he sort of, that one performance has lost his reputation or has enabled the media to change his reputation as a choker and not a relatively good shooter and washed. Even though I don't entirely agree with that. Sure, his defense might not be the same, but I do think he's still a very valuable shooter. He just has to prove that for the Dallas Mavericks now. And obviously, this could be a make or break for the championship that the Dallas Mavericks are pursuing because they recently just came off of a finals appearance, and now the next step is going to be winning the title. And now we have to sort of see if they can do that with Klay Thompson. And he's going to have to prove to be a very solid either third option or an incredibly good shooter. And I'm sure that in this season he can most likely turn the critics because he's going to be playing with a fantastic playmaker in Luka Doncic. And maybe he can turn some heads and hopefully shoot 40% from the field again. But again, Klay Thompson, he desperately needs to prove himself to all of the critics that keep typing in the chat. Remember, Klay Thompson went 0 for 10 in an elimination game. Remember, Klay Thompson went 0 for 10 in an elimination game. You only see, that is the only thing that you see when you think about Klay Thompson. That's the only thing that you see when talking about Klay Thompson. And that's really a very, it's sad to see it because he was so feared in the NBA when I was watching. Like, one of the most feared shooters that the NBA has seen, period. And it's amazing how quickly his reputation changed like that. Now, the next player on this list is for the Denver Nuggets, and that's Jamal Murray. And he was just given a huge contract, $208 million, and now he has to play like it. Jamal Murray is arguably the most underrated guard in the entire NBA. He has a championship, but he has never made an all-star appearance in his entire career, which is insane to think about because this man dropped a triple-double in the NBA Finals. The fact that he has never been selected for an all-star appearance is, again, it's very insane. So this is he has to prove himself that he can be a $208 million player, and maybe he can make the all-star team because he has to play great. And, like, they rely on his success in the postseason. Like, he's really, really, really good in the postseason most of the time. And most of the time, again, like, that's against the Lakers that he's really good in the postseason, but he is very good, and he has so many good postseason memories that a lot of people remember from the bubble, not to mention when he won the championship. And again, he needs to prove that he is that $208 million player and a very valuable second option, which I already think he's a second option. I already think he's a valuable second option, but can he do more? Because he's given way more money now. And we'll go on to the next, which is the Detroit Pistons. Now, the player with the most to prove on Detroit is everyone. Like, quite frankly, everybody has a lot to prove on Detroit. This is a team that needs to show everybody that they are not as horrible and as abysmal and as atrocious as they were last season. The Detroit Lions were able to get more wins than the Detroit Pistons, and the Pistons play 82 games. That says a lot about the Pistons, and that says a lot about how mediocre they've been, and that's not even mediocre, how bad they've been. And again, it's just everybody on the team needs work, not just Cade Cunningham. Everybody on the team needs to prove themselves. They can't be having that bad of a season that they had. They just can't. I mean, 14 wins in total last season. That is absolutely disgusting. And again, like, you can't do that. Now, this is probably going to be the same thing like for the Wizards, because quite frankly, I think all of those players on that team, they have a lot to prove. But yeah, the Detroit Lions, counting the postseason as well as the regular season, they were able to get more wins than the Detroit Pistons. Like, they finished 12-5 last season, and they were able to win in the wild card, and then they were also able to win in the divisional round when then they went over to the NFC conference, and they were able to accumulate. That's 14 wins in the season, the same amount of wins as the Detroit Pistons, despite the fact that the Pistons played 82 games, and that's horrible. Like, that is just appalling. Like, the fact that an NFL team has the same amount of wins as an NBA team, it's disgusting, and that cannot happen again. It should not happen again. So the entire Pistons roster has something to prove. So that's all that I have time for today. So that's going to be it for the fifth segment. Thank you. I'm going to continue on with this list most likely tomorrow, and actually for the majority of the week, because there are a lot of players that have a lot to prove on every single team. So I'm just going to continue on with this list. It's going to be an ongoing thing. Let me know in the comments whether you guys agree with it, whether you guys don't agree with it, whether you guys want to hear more from it, or whether you guys don't want to hear more from it. Just let me know. Thank you so much for tuning in to the GSMC Basketball Podcast, presented by the GSMC Sports Network. Your support means a lot to us, so remember to subscribe to the show, leave a positive review. It really does make a difference. We also invite you to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram for more content and updates. As usual, we love to hear what you guys have to say during the show, whether you guys have a hot take, whether you guys have a burning question. We are all ears. So if you really want your comment or question to get noticed, you can go ahead and use Super Chat, and you can click the $ below the chat box. Send in your comments, donations that way. Really helps the show. If Super Chat isn't really your thing, then you can always use the link displayed below the ticker, gsmcpodcast.net, and then you can donate to the show that way. Really helps the show, makes it much more interactive between myself and you guys, and your comments are guaranteed to get mentioned next time on the show when you do. And thank you so much for tuning into this podcast. I am your host, Nelson, and as always, take care.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet. Damn, ain't that great. I don't wanna go.